It's true that we live in a time of crazy disruption. The things of the past that used to work aren't working anymore. There's algorithms that are working against us in everything from our email inbox to the things that we post on social media. No matter what seems to happen, it seems like nothing is working like it used to work. So, in light of all this, what should we do? How ought we think? How ought we plan so that we can adjust and adapt to this changing world that we're in right now? I'm here to tell you that I believe the key word is to experiment. And let me back up a little bit. So many times we try things and they do not work. And a lot of times we don't know when to quit because we hate being perceived as a failure. And we think, oh my gosh, I put so much energy and work into this and it didn't work. And we're told consistency is the key to success. However, what I've been doing internally inside my organization and internally inside my mind is adopting an experimental mindset. And what that means is that all new things that I do, all new things that we do are experiments. Now, let me first, before I share how it works, share with you some of the downside to not having this particular mindset. I've learned this from my own experiences. I was absolutely convinced that crypto was going to be the next big thing. And over the last 2 years, I've invested so much of my company's resources and my personal resources into believing crypto is going to be the next big thing. And Web3 on top of that, NFTs, decentralized autonomous organizations, and all these other things that might mean want to you, I felt like they were the next big thing. Now, I still am bullish on the long-term perspectives of crypto. But what I did, quote unquote, the mistake that I made is I went all in on crypto. I launched a show called the Web3 Business Podcast. I launched a conference called Crypto Business Conference. I went to lots of other events and I invested ridiculous amounts of time and resources because I believed that this was the next big thing. I'm a person of faith. I believed that I was being directed to go down this path. And perhaps I was. But I will tell you, it was a massive amount of effort for my company to embrace this because we began publishing a podcast, articles, a newsletter. A lot of resources went into this thing because I believed it was really, really important. Now, was that a mistake? Only time will tell. But what I've learned from going all in on things, and trust me, this is not the first thing I've gone all in on. I went all in on doing a course called Becoming Well Known. I went all in on starting something called the Social Strategy Club. And I went all in on this and this and this and this and this. And you probably have your list as well. Now, of course, we always learn things from these experiences, right? There's always good that comes from it. But there's always this little bit of voice inside of our head that says, why'd you get on that path? Why'd you not stay on the path that you're already on? You were so close. You've seen that picture probably of two people digging for gold and one person quits and the other person is just almost there, right? And in our head, we say, oh, we're almost there if we just keep going. Well, I'm here to tell you that sometimes it's ideal to quit. And the reason sometimes it's ideal to quit is because we are human beings. We have a limited amount of time and energy. And there's only so much we can do on our path as a marketer, creator, or entrepreneur to get where we need to go. So back to experiments. If in hindsight, I did in the past what I'm doing now, I believe things would be much better. And this is the philosophy that I have moving forward. The philosophy is that all new things are an experiment. This is an experiment. I had an idea to start something called the Marketing Disrupted podcast with Michael Stelzner. But first, I have to prove that I can find an audience on topics related to disruption, mindset, and thinking. And the way that I'm going about doing this is I'm writing content on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Threads. And I'm creating videos and I'm publishing it on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And I'm checking to see, and I'm also taking the audio from this and I'm publishing it on the Social Media Marketing Podcast. Why am I doing this? Because it's a grand experiment. Because it was recommended to me by one of my directors, why don't we experiment, Mike, before you go all in on creating a brand new show? Because in my head, I'm like, people want to listen to what I have to say. I should start a brand new podcast. But the wisdom that came from one of my employees, that is wisdom that I have embraced across the entire organization here at Social Media Examiner, is to have a experimental mindset. You know, back in the early days of the social media marketing world, we had this thought that a lot of quote unquote creators on the social channels were going to come to social media marketing world, even though it was really for marketers and entrepreneurs. So we created the creator ticket, and we created this huge expo area downstairs. We put all this energy and effort into it. It was a ridiculous amount of time, money, and energy into it. And it turns out it really didn't work. Now, in hindsight, you could say that's a great example of an experiment, but we didn't learn our lesson. I believe we did it a second year, if I'm not mistaken. So what ends up happening when we don't have an experimental mindset is we put a lot of energy into something and we say, this has got to work. It all depends on it. This has got to work. When maybe what we should do is small little experiments that don't cost a lot of time, don't cost a lot of money, kind of like what I'm doing with you right now, and see whether they work. Now, here's the good news about an experiment. When you run an experiment, it's okay if it fails because it's an experiment. By their very nature, experiments are meant to have a hypothesis that you're trying to prove or disprove. My hypothesis with you is that I can create more of this content and you would like to hear more or watch more of this content. But I need to get in the cadence of running this experiment, and I'm doing it on the various social platforms to see if it works. Now, this is not the only experiment I'm doing at Social Media Examiner. There's lots of other experiments, but it's completely okay when you position it as an experiment, because guess what? Experiments by their very nature have a beginning and an end of the experiment, and then an analysis period. What can I learn from what happened? Should I try the experiment again by tweaking it a little bit here, by tweaking it a little bit there? This is the nature of experiments. So my question to you is, what are your thoughts about experiments? Do you believe having an experimental mindset as a marketer, as a creator, as an entrepreneur are useful? Have you tried experiments and discovered fascinating little nuggets that you could take and apply over here or over there? I would love to hear more from you. My name is Michael Stelzner. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on this kind of experimental mindset. And hopefully I'll be doing more of this. Catch you next time.